What up, what up, what up, everybody? Welcome to Fireside 5. I am Steve Horney of Integrated Health Sciences, and I would like to welcome to you today, Richard Symister. How are you, my man?
Feel peachy keen, feel great. Feel great.
You feel great and you sound great. You have one of the best voices in the game, and I look forward to hearing all about it. So I'll tell my story of Richard from my vantage point, and then he's going to fill in some of the gaps. So Richard is a guy that I met about 10 years ago at a course, and we just immediately connected. And I think in some ways we probably complement each other well enough that we want to hear what the other person says, but then we have enough in common that we have nice confirmation bias. So it's this nice, like, this is comfortable, we think alike, but then it's also I can learn from this person kind of mentality. And for that, we're pretty lucky to have one another. So him and I have known each other. We've nerded out on various topics, professionally, personally. He's got an interesting story. I hope that he tells it. I mean, I've heard from his podcast where he talked about even being a kid. Feel free to share anything that you like, but you have an interesting professional journey, something that I'm very impressed by. And it surprises me none is finding out that you were the first African-American male to graduate from your physical therapy school. Obviously a scholar amongst scholars, you are the man. But either way, why don't you tell us a little bit, start wherever you like, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Grew up as a nerd, a big science nerd, really. Grew up as a nerd, big science nerd, big into biology, sciences. Went to college as an English major, writing communications. Last year of college, I interned as an athletic trainer, athletic trainer assistant. Totally fell in love, waited about 2 or 3 years, got all my prerequisites, went to Simmons College, not knowing I was the first black male to get into the pro. I was wondering why all the professors looked at me the first day I entered the room with my dreadlocks at the time.
It's because you're handsome as hell, in my opinion.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I never looked back. I fell in love with PT, fell in love with putting my hands on clients. Same story as most entrepreneur PTs. I worked for many companies, was the manager for a lot of PT companies, but I always felt they were doing it incorrectly. I always felt that the patient wasn't getting full treatment. I didn't go to school to be rushed through my evals, and I didn't go through school to be a marketer, because every company says you have to go out and speak to a doctor and tell them why we're so good and get the doctors to send us clients. So after about 8-9 years of my career, I was driving with the buddy to a meeting, another boring PT meeting. And we looked at each other and said, why are we doing this? You know, and a year later, we opened up our own company. It turned into, again, another mill. I don't like mills. I wasn't enjoying myself anymore. And if I'm not having fun, I'm not going to do it. And so I opened up physical therapy in Brooklyn, 2013. Having a lot of fun. I love 99.9% of my clients, and but yeah, that's my boring story. If you want me to be more specific, you know, I like long walks on the beach. I'm a Gemini. I like old movies.
Oh, a Gemini. I didn't know I had to watch out for you. That's good to know. Okay, yeah. Cool. Tell us a little bit about your dance and drumming experiences.
Drumming since I was 12, 14, stopped during grad school because, you know, school. I just got back into it maybe 8 years ago, playing Afro-Cuban. So a lot of congas. I was a capoeirista for a while, so I played the berimbau and all the capoeira instruments, and dancing. My wife was a professional dancer. About 4 years ago, she said, I found this new dance. It's called Chicago style stepping. If you're not familiar with it, I will explain.
Please do.
It looks like salsa to R&B music. It's a couple's dance. Spins, turns, very romantic. So she went 2 months before I did, and I showed up to one of the practices, and she was dancing with a very tall, handsome man. I said, you know what? I think I'm going to join this group because I don't want her dancing alone. And so that was, 2-3 years ago, and it's been a lot of fun. It's made my social anxiety gone. Yeah, it's fun. It keeps us dating. It's a really nice romantic date night for my wife and I.
That's cool. My wife and I have taken some salsa lessons and things like that. Bryant Park does during the summers, they'll do a dance lesson for maybe half an hour, 45 minutes, and then they'll take that lesson and then you can apply it to a band that plays for an hour or two. It's pretty awesome if you haven't done it. Yeah. Very, very cool. Awesome. So let's dive into some of our questions and things that you can elaborate on. I know you have very good reach, very depth of clinical experience and information that can help clinicians. But I think it's important to understand that anyone who's listening to this can benefit, because if you understand more about the interactions between your physical therapist, then you can help guide the conversations in ways that can help you out even more. Just being an informed consumer with a high health literacy is important. So first, talk to us a little bit about experience plus research plus listening equals positive client outcomes. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, in order for myself, I want the best value for my client. I want them to reach their functional goals or their sports, whatever. And this is sort of I guess, the bastardized form of what I heard a few years ago, but be experienced. You have to pay your dues. You have to pay the pipe. You have to pay someone. I don't care if you're very intuitive, if you're a guru, but you have to get out there and treat and be around people and listen to other clinicians. I've met people who graduate and they think they know everything. I didn't know. I was really good as a grad, but I knew there was so much out. I still think I'm a newbie because there's so much out there to learn.
Oh yeah, it's like the higher you get, the more you see. I thought that I genuinely knew more the day that I graduated from school. Like if you would have asked me and said, this is the ocean of physical therapy, this is your bucket of what a physical therapist can know, I felt like I knew 80% of it because I had gotten 80s all along the way. And then I passed my licensing exam. So I'm like, okay, I know all. And then you climb up the mountain and you see the vastness and you're like, oh, I don't know. Even the things that I thought that I knew, I don't even know if I know them. And I don't know if I know well enough to understand both sides of them. That's like.
Yeah. And the more people you know, the more people you speak with, the more, I didn't know that. I didn't know that person. I don't know that research. And
my gosh.
Yeah. It's overwhelming at times, but you have to settle down and remember, this is your niche. This is your target audience. If you want to learn more, be very focused and targeted. Don't try to learn everything because that's a big net.
Fair. So then that's the experience. Now, how about the research part of it? And I agree with you on the experience. You can't fake reps.
No, you can't fake reps. I like that. With the research, I'm not talking specifically about evidence-based practice, although that's a nice theory. There's so much out there, and if you're not going out there and reading the literature, studying, continuing education, then again, you're just relying on your own knowledge, what you've learned. So you have to see, and you don't know everything. And Mike Renauld, I'm not sure if he's a physical therapist in Boston, Massachusetts, shoulder and knee guy. I really love protocols. And one thing I remembered from one of his courses is, for a couple of days, write down everything you do for a client, everything. And you need to understand, you need to validate why you're doing it. If you can't validate it, why you're doing it. I've done this for my whole life. Well, I don't care. Or I know. This is a great way to learn how to express to your clients what you're doing, then why are you doing it? So I believe other people are doing this. There are some new trends and new protocols out there. Yeah. You need to be able to differentiate between what's good and what's bad, and also comb through your own treatments to make sure you're giving the client the best. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense. And I hear you on. I did not miss a JOSPT article for, I would say, I don't think that I missed one until probably for like the first 12 years of my career. I read every title. If the title was interesting, then I would read the abstract. If the abstract grabbed me, then I would dive into the conclusion and then kind of trace my way back through the methods. And I think that that's how a lot of people consume research. Mm-hmm. I have walked away from it, and I'm not saying that I'll stay away from it, but HSS, Hospital for Special Surgery, does a great current concepts in sports medicine that they do every year. And I think I'm just going to pay, because I went to that current concepts in sports medicine a few years ago, and was kind of disappointed at the lack of new information that was brought to me.
Yes.
That was very validating because it meant that it's not like there's 10,000 Journal of Sports Physical Therapy types of publications out there. There's one really. There's APTA, JOSPT, manual and modern, like manual therapy journal, and maybe like one more, like Journal of Strength and Conditioning, or like kind of the four that you got to like be weaving through. And I kind of think that I would rather take that time dedicated to taking courses, like true courses, even if it's just in like yoga. And I don't mean just in, I just mean if it's out of the scope of physical therapy CEUs, something movement based, I'd rather pay for that and then also pay for someone else to skim through all of those research titles and just tell me the ones that seem the most noteworthy. How do you feel about my approach?
I actually agree. I used to, as a CSCS, I used to read speed, and after a while, like, you know what, that's nice, but I want to see it. I want something tactile. What you said about someone summarizing everything that's out there, there are people and there are publications that will summarize all the research. So let's say, you know, we don't have all the time anymore to do that. So you try to grab as much as you can, you know, and I agree. And once you learn something, and I'm interested in Pilates and yoga. Do I want to read it or do I want to take a class? You know,
yeah, exactly. Do I want to read an article about deadlifting, or do I want to go out and coach a ton of people and feel a bunch of different variations myself? And probably the right balance is being able to do both. But I've been heavy in the research world for a long time. It's time to let me out and play. Let's get out and play. So then how about listening? You're a better listener than I am. Go for it. Tell me about listening.
That's a skill I'm working on, because I tend to cut people off because I want to say what I want to say quickly, and that's a skill. And I as a therapist, I was guilty of that. When someone comes in, yeah, my knee hurt, I ramped up my running from 3 miles to 5 miles. Okay, you overloaded. You know, I'll jump in with a diet, and I can't do that. And also, a lot of my clients just want to be heard, because a lot of doctors or whatever, they don't listen to them. Okay, really quick, you're in and out. And a lot of therapy, it really is just hearing what they have to say. It's also great for your evaluation. Let them talk. You can lead them, but just, excuse my language, shut the fuck up sometimes.
Oh, yeah, totally.
And let them talk. You'll get most of the information about what you want to do that day. And we'll talk about this later on. You'll find out what their motivators are.
Yeah.
Their triggers, negative experiences with therapy, with exercise, and that's going to help you lead the evaluation. Also set your short-term and long-term goals, because, you know, I got hit with a baseball bat, or, you know, I had a trauma on my bike, or they used to make fun of me when I was on the balance beam, so I don't do it anymore. Yeah. So, you know, so that's why I think.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's interesting. Active listening is obviously a skill that a lot of people work on. I almost feel like I hyperactively listen, meaning I want you to know that I'm so interested in what you're saying, and I get what you're saying so much that I can finish your sentence for you. Yeah. And sometimes that helps. It can build like that, oh my God, like we're best friends, we totally get each other. But also it can be the detriment, because you're not letting the person fully articulate that themselves and giving them the space to take their time to formulate that, especially when it's in a clinician environment. If they're about to say something that has a certain like aha or epiphany to it, you want them to say that. That's going to stick with them longer than if I like jump in and I'm like, it is that you're sitting too long at your desk. But if I'm like, yeah, tell me a little bit about, and they're like, oh yeah, you know what? Like, maybe my shoulder does hurt a little bit more because I started putting in more hours. Like, that is you leading the person to the river, but letting them drink themselves and experience all of that goodness themselves. So
it's much more buy-in, because you celebrated their knowledge. You celebrated that they reached the conclusion themselves. And they'll also have a tendency to remember it and also try to impress you next time. You know, oh, I went home and I figured this out, and hey, good job. Not fake accolades. Accolade, not fake accolades, but no. You know, be sincere and say, that's great. I'm glad you figured that out, because that's a quarter of your problem right there,
And that's the thing is also, I think if it is that nice back and forth, they probably have a better test with the Kieran O'Sullivan test, which is, this is for any clinicians out there, anyone out there who explains anything to anyone ever, or who's been in a conversation, it's a great test. Something that I'll say to my patients when we're done with the initial evaluation is, you're going to go home and you're going to tell someone what happened here today. And that makes me sound like it's so like, you tell them what happened here today. It's like
a story. It's a story, it's like marketing, promoting. It's a story. Stephen, my last client turned off the fan on me for some reason. I am here in a very hot room, so I want you to sing for 20 seconds.
Oh,
I go turn on the fan. Go ahead.
It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. It's not unusual to be loved by anyone. But anyone. It's not unusual to see me cry. I wanna die. All right, we're gonna talk about short-term versus long-term goals. Now, this is something that we learn in school.
You didn't lose anyone, did you?
No, that was good. Yes, everyone signed off. So, short-term versus long-term goals. Tell us a little bit about that, Richard.
What were you taught in school, Stephen, when it comes to setting short-term and long-term goals?
Oh my God, I think I was taught to study for the test for what it was, and then I was taught to standardize it so that we got reimbursed by the insurance companies. Yeah. And that is exactly the depth that lives in my mind. No more, no less.
Range of motion, strength.
Totally. Functional limitations. Yeah. Be able to walk 15 stairs in a matter of 2 weeks.
And this goes back to listening to the client, and we'll get to intrinsic motivators later, but long-term goals is always, has to be functional. And that's not what my clients are skiers or runners, or I want to be able to stand for a 3-hour lecture. So that should be your focus for your long-term goal. And that's going to equate to a positive outcome for your client.
Right.
So again, talking to your client, and so many therapists aren't savvy enough or creative enough to think, well, he's a basketball player. How do I get them to that level where they, I was lucky enough to play a lot of sports. I wasn't good at a lot of them, but I played a lot of sports. So I could figure out, and I'm also a CSCS as you are too, a strength and conditioning specialist. So you can tend to be creative. You can be more creative and figure out, you're a climber. Okay, I know what your long-term goal is. I know how to get you there. So I think as far as long-term goals, just be really specific, and also talk it over with your clients so you're on the same page. If you're not, you may get lucky, but it's a crapshoot if you're not talking to your client and saying, these are the phases I want to go through. These are my short-term goals for you. And my short-term goal is always to protect the client, decrease pain, bring them out.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's almost the Band-Aid is like a little bit. It's included in the short-term goals.
Yeah. And by the time they're discharged, you should be able to have all your fundamental movements down. I won't go through all of them, but you should feel comfortable going back to your life activity, your sports activity. That's how I feel about long-term goals.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of times when you really ask the questions, I think people are more afraid of death than they're willing to admit. And not aging gracefully. The landing is, I think, what a lot of people have on their minds. And I think that's important to talk to people about. And especially Walter Longo at USC, he's the director of the USC Longevity Center. There's a lot of people that are doing a lot of good research on longevity, the Blue Zone studies, and you can talk about their biases or not. I don't really stake a claim on that either way. Walter Longo, a lot of people are talking about, that's why intermittent fasting and calorie restriction and IGF-1 we're talking about, and mTOR we're talking about, and all of these different things that are helping people have higher quality and quantity of days on this earth. And I think that's in a lot of people's minds. And that may be in a person's long-term goal. And if you didn't listen to them, you might not get to the right place to really find out what's driving their emotions in that moment in response to what's going on.
and you are sort of breaking ground as Kelly Starrett and a lot of top-notch therapists. Is you're not just, I guess we have to break the stereotype of what a physical therapist is, but you are talking about life fitness. I hear you in your podcast, your webinars, and you are recreating the title of a physical therapist, because I think, we do have to, I already did that, but you do have to, you have your 8 pillars of fitness.
Yeah, we have our 8 foundations of health. Yeah. And
that's super, super important, because once someone leaves here, what's going to happen to them? Do they have the right direction? I'm going to go join a gym. I'm going to do this. Well, okay. I think you need a couple other components that you need to encompass to make yourself fully healthy, fit, balanced, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, and I think people put it out there when we talk about 8 foundations of health. They kind of are like, oh, that's so far away. But I want to do this now. And honestly, I'm not trying to sound like all like woo, but if you set being healthy as your goal, the path will tend to take you out of the current pain that you're in and put you in a right direction. It's counterintuitive. If you put more of your effort towards long-term health, it tends to make the thing that's right in front of you, which would be more your short-term goal, disappear sometimes.
As long as you have the right guidance too. Some people will have that, the carrot and the stick, but they don't know how to get there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because you're giving people the right tools to reach that higher level of life fitness.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. So now talking about intrinsic motivators and things like that, tell us and talk us through a little bit of intrinsic and incentive-based and things like that, but keeping your clients, this is more for clinicians, but again, it's all relating back to whichever side you're on, keeping your clients' intrinsic motivators and incentives in mind. And kind of then frame it the same way as how can you coach people to help them have their therapist keep those in mind?
It comes down to the first part, listening and asking them and finding out about their sports history, their past medical history, and just look what makes you happy, what drives you, what motivates you, what's your incentive, what makes you get out of bed. I talked to you last week, 2 weeks ago, Steve, and I asked you what gets you out of bed, or how are you feeling today? And I did that just because I like speaking to you, but it also tells me what keeps you ticking, what makes you move. And so once you figure that out, and I'm going to speak about this later with the ego, but your ego, not the colloquial ego. I'm talking about the clinical ego, yourself, your self-identification. It needs to be fed. Okay, it needs gratification. And if you don't feed your ego, every now and then, there's nothing to gratify. There's nothing to motivate it. And this is just a theory that I've been researching. And after a while, there's no gratification. I don't want to work out. I don't want to eat this because it's not bringing me what I want. I'm going to have a Snickers. I'm going to be lazy today. I'm going to have a couple stouts and just lay down and watch Jerry Springer or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's really important that you check in, not just at the beginning, the first day, but every few days, every few weeks, just, hey, what's going on? How do you feel about that? Things change in clients too. They may figure out, I don't like this, motivator. So you find out what it is. You make sure your goals are tied into the motivator and your treatment plans. That's why, again, you have to be creative. You have to be furtive. I'm going to tweak this program. Don't have cookie cutter programs. Have person specific, ego specific programs. That's what I'm talking about as far as.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I'll say that I feel like from everything you ask about kind of like what's your ethos, that's a really good question. And I think that right now, anyone listening in the future, right now we're in month 6 maybe of COVID-19 in New York City. And I think that's knocked a lot of people off their center, and also paradoxically has centered a lot of people. I think people are realizing what really drives them, what they hate about their job, what they love about their job. Because when everything else is kind of removed, there's not a lot of distractions. You're not running out and going to grab some food or not meeting up with your friends as much. Like, it's kind of you and your profession, and then whoever your my wife, AKA my roommate. It's really just that's going on right now. And that's where I think a lot of people are seeing shifts right now, big time professionally, because I think that they're seeing like what gets you out of bed and realizing like this doesn't get me out of bed. And that's where you're seeing the movement.
During this time, I called it an unpaid sabbatical. There was a lot of meditation, a lot of insight, a lot of pain going through stuff. But what did you figure out about yourself during the pandemic?
What did I figure out about myself?
Yeah, whether it's motivators.
Yeah, no, I think yoga is amazing. I love reading strength and conditioning books and being able to wake up, read a little bit, then move a little bit, then meditate a little bit, and then have something healthy to eat is a hell of a way to start your day.
Yes, man.
Like you've already won. Like it's already gravy. How about you?
Conversation with my last client, and she said she got up, she meditated, she had her herbs, she did her yoga, and once she do that, I'm the same way. If I don't do my stuff in the morning, if I don't my ego and do stuff for self first, not being selfish, but actually, yes, being selfish. You should be selfish.
It's not a bad word.
If I don't do that the rest of the day, I get calls, I have to do something for someone else because I haven't taken care of myself. Things I need for myself, things I need to do for myself.
Yeah, everyone has needs. I don't know why we pretend like we don't. It's just, and most of the time when, again, we're not saying like everyone has needs, like you need a Ferrari or you need to get that gold diamonds. Like we're talking needs, like emotional and physical needs. And if you check off those boxes, a lot of if your focus is in the right direction about the way that you're attending to analyzing your needs and then feeding your needs
without guilt.
Exactly. It's a good way to be. And it's not like our needs, if you've cleared everything else off, I don't believe, and maybe I'm just speaking for me, and maybe I just had good parents, like whatever it is, and great influences, but I don't feel like I need a lot, but the things that I do need, I very much need. And in a weird way, this whole pandemic and again, I think sometimes we lose sight that 140,000+ people have died in the United States and many more globally. Like I would never, whenever I say that the pandemic is affecting me, I hope that it always comes across that I know how much it's affecting other people and I am very insulated from it. But with that being said, it does make it a little bit easier to fill your needs because there is a little bit more time. Even if your commute is dropped out and you shift that time, that may be a time where you can scratch some of your itches a little bit better.
I don't mind the time off.
Yeah.
I missed my clients. I didn't mind thoughts. Yeah, man. I don't know what else to say. It just, I like the time off.
And I think a lot of us in the health world are realizing that we were pretty burnt out. It would have been nice if there wasn't this massive chaos element to it too, but the actual removal from the clinic and almost attending to the wounds of burnout, I think a lot of healthcare practitioners have some benefit that aren't in the ERs and aren't in the hospitals and things like that. Moving on to our next question. So scaffolding your treatment progression.
Okay. Someone comes in.
Yep.
Realize that they're not good at a certain task, whether it's kicking, swinging, doing a plank, body mechanics, a squat.
Mm-hmm.
And, again, you find out why. You have to find out, was there some sort of trauma? Did they not learn this? Why is there some sort of restriction? But don't make them feel bad. Obviously, you wouldn't. Don't yell at them.
Oh, yeah.
And again, cookie cutter exercises don't work or programs. Find out why. You can't squat. Let's have you squat on the ground first. Well, that doesn't make any sense. It's okay. Just put your feet up on the wall and squat.
Yeah.
Things in biteable chunks or digestible chunks. Don't make it too easy. I'm not trying to baby someone, but give them something they can reach and achieve, and definitely celebrate the victories, celebrate the small milestones. So they say, okay, I did this. so they can get to the next spot, the next level, without giving them too much. If you overwhelm them, it's too much for them. They feel shame, they feel regret, they feel guilty, they can't do this, they feel bad. Don't make your clients feel bad. Make them bring positive thoughts into their life, be positive around them, and give them things that they can achieve. Not too easy, and tell them why. This is important. You're able to stand on one leg for 10 seconds. No, that's good, because you couldn't do 2 seconds 2 weeks ago. This is great. And this is gonna tie into your walking or your jumping or your aversion on stairs.
Yeah.
That's what scaffolding. That's why I love scaffolding.
I like that a lot. I think that it lends to the philosophy of find out what the person does. The hardest thing that a person does well is a nice way to build work capacity. I heard that first from Craig Liebson. I don't know if he's just the person that brought it to me or if he's the person who said it originally, but I kind of almost take the opposite side as well. And I think it makes for a nice pairing is find out the easiest thing that they do terribly. That's a great thing as well. This works on your capacity because we all know, even just from pain science, if you can get them doing more work, then they're going to feel better. Their brain is going to feel better. You're going to build up that work capacity. But finding the easiest thing that they do terrible, I can still remember this guy was in for his right hip and it was really bothering him. And I took him outside and I was doing carries. We were going around the block.
You had me do that.
I had him all the way up. And he was on his right arm and he was fine. Right hip, right arm, whatever. Switched it over to his left and he could walk maybe 7 steps. And it was the perfect moment of like, you don't think that your brain knows that there's something wrong through here and therefore it's shutting down horsepower and it feels uncomfortable. And to kind of touch on the nervous system, and this is a good time to bring it up, but your nervous system is really sensitive. It's not very specific, meaning it's very sensitive. It knows that something from your shoulders to your hips and everything in between isn't right. But it's not very good at telling you exactly where it feels uncomfortable. And if your nervous system is uncomfortable, it will only give you limited power. If your nervous system's feeling 20% uncomfortable, you're only going to get 80% power. If it's feeling 40% uncomfortable, you're only going to get 60% power. So finding whatever that is that's making your nervous system feel the most uncomfortable, it could be a stiff big toe, it could be a painful left knee, it could be a right shoulder that doesn't seem to stabilize all that well. Whatever is making your nervous system feel the most uncomfortable is the fastest way to raise the tide on all of your other muscle groups. And I think that factors in, if you take that as kind of the overarching topic, find the easiest thing that they do really poorly and find the hardest thing that they really do well. It's a nice little trifecta right there. How do you feel about that?
I am in total agreement. There are many times I have to fundamental movements, rolling, crawling, high kneeling. I have all my clients go through. If I see some sort of movement dysfunction, let's take it back. Let's get away from the functional movements. Yeah. And they're like, why? Okay, let me see your roll. A lot of my high-level club athletes can't roll, or they can't roll with their arms and feet off the ground. And when I'm kneeling, and they have them do a halo, their back goes to lordotic posture, the head goes all over the place. So I do believe, and this is, again, scaffolding, this is bringing it down.
Yeah.
Capacity is what you said, looking at their worst movement and trying to find, okay, let's start here. You don't do that well, but you will do that well in a week. I'm confident. And so I do believe, I like what you said, finding out what they do poorly.
Yeah, not to make them feel bad, but it's definitely an aha moment for both of us, especially when it's that bad and you're like, are you even trying right now? Is that even, like, I'm not making fun of you. I'm terrible at tons of stuff, but like, that's really how that's going down for you right now? And they're like, oh my God. Like, and I'm like, and then my favorite line is always like, I wouldn't give you a test that I didn't at least know the answers to. So we'll get you out of it. It's fine. I'm not going to test on them and be like, well, I have no idea now what to do. Like, everything's an assessment. We assess, we address, we assess, we address, we assess, we address, we move along. Yes. So as far as emotional blocks, and you touched on this, and I was excited. This was the one that I was most excited to talk to you about of all of them. But emotional blocks, talk about ego, depletion, performance anxiety, and shame, and in any order that you like.
ego depletion. There are two theories. There's an old theory and a new theory. The one is the willpower theory, meaning that you have a certain amount of willpower for the day. So if I had blood tests 2 months ago, and my doctor says no wheat, no dairy, no alcohol for a month. Okay, so the first couple of days I was okay, and the first week, because I felt so good, because I felt a change, that was my intrinsic motivator. My willpower was, it's easier for me to choose foods because I was feeling so good. Let me go back. If you have to make choices all day long, I have to have this food, drink this much water, and your willpower may be drained, and that's why at the end of the day, that's when most people cheat. It's not the beginning, it's the end of the day, because their willpower has been sucked up, so they have no more regulatory mechanisms. The newer theories goes back to the ego. If your ego is not being satisfied, it's not gratification, you're not feeding your ego, at the end of the day, it's saying, F this. I didn't get what I wanted. I've been training this long. I can't, my high jump is better. F this. I'm going to have some Doritos. I'm not going to bench press. I'm going to do something else that's not beneficial for me, because this is a substitution for my ego, trying to achieve for. So again, with my blood test, because I was seeing such positive results right away, my ego was being fed because I could see physical changes. I had my poop was good. If people follow poop,
yes,
breathing was better. I was sleeping better. So my motivators were there, and so my ego was fed. Myself was fed. I could make my regulatory system was better. It was easier for me to make the right decisions day by day. That's ego depletion. Ego depletion is your ego just gets tired of the same bullshit and say, you know what, I'm not feeling fulfilled. I need to find something that's gonna fill up my ego gut. Yeah,
that's really interesting. I can relate to what you're saying, and so you took a lot of things out at once. Now, how are you kind of just like, you know what? I don't need any of those. I feel so good, it doesn't make a difference. Or are you of the removal and then reintroduction track to see which one of those 4 things was really screwing you up? Was it the alcohol? Was it the meat? Was it the dairy? Was it the whatever? And I'm not pushing you in any direction. I'm just curious how your mind wraps around that.
Usually I do maybe 3 changes at one time, or 2 changes, and I do it for 3 weeks. If things don't change after 3 weeks, I make a slight tweak.
Okay.
The reason I made a major change is I saw a doctor, and she said, you have this. I had candida, the yeast infection in the stomach.
Yeah, sure.
She thought I had a gluten intolerance. I was lacking vitamin A, all those things. So she said, listen, I want you to do everything at once, just to make sure, not just one thing. That's just their protocol. Usually I don't, but I wasn't feeling good from the last year or so. It's just my gut felt bad. I was bloated after I ate. I never felt good. I always felt like I had something puffing my belly. That's why I went full throttle and I did everything she recommended. And it was good. So to answer your question, usually 20 things, I wouldn't recommend that to anyone, even when I prescribe something. Here are the 3 basic things I want you to do at home. Do those for a week and come back. Don't overwhelm the system. Don't overwhelm the client. Don't overwhelm the brand. So keep it simple. Try it for a couple of weeks and do minor tweaks or changes.
I think that it's interesting because I know that depending on the person who's laying on the table in front of me, I will take a very different approach. And my hunch is that you do it automatically as well. But I can recognize when a person is a rip the Band-Aid off person and they want 5 exercises on the first day and they're going to do them every day and then that's it. And then there's the people that you can tell that like need to take the shower and like warm up and like break out the baby oil and they're like gently kind of taking off this Band-Aid. And that's a real archetype patient as well. And I think that it's important to for us to at least acknowledge and then therefore tailor in our approach the Band-Aid ripper offers and the people who like the slow pull away, because they're only going to get 1 exercise and maybe 1 YouTube video sent to them. Does that make sense?
How did you learn that? Is that from experience, or did you have a natural intuition when speaking to people, when having a conversation, or just the energy off of someone, or body mechanics? How did you?
Yeah, it was purely
skill?
when we started teaching, and I had to genuinely make an algorithm out of what I do. Like, it's so easy to just do things. And then once you have students, you start to think about why you do them. And then once you start teaching,
Yes.
you get asked questions, and you need to like take the whole tree of your mind and put it onto PowerPoint slides and deliver it to someone in 2 8-hour days. And that's actually where that came from, was realizing that that's something I was automatically doing, was fitting people to what they're like, what's the most likely thing that they're going to do is something that you need to talk to them about, because they know whether they're going to like buy blue blocking glasses, buy a cooling thing, or they're going to go to airplane mode at 10 p.m. Like, they know. You are just like, these are the best ones. And then they're kind of like, no chance. Maybe I'll do that. And all of that has led me to because of teaching, just to try and put all of that into a system. So yeah, that's
blue blockers. Why blue blockers? Do they still make blue blockers? I remember blue blockers.
Oh yeah, these blue blockers are okay. Sound like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Yeah, these blue blockers are okay with me. Yeah, I don't know if they still make blue blockers. Those amazing, like. But wait, there's more. Sunglasses. They were
get the second and a half.
but I get literally blue light blocking glasses that I will wear. They're actually made for construction, but I went on Consumer Reports because as you're going to sleep, if you have blue light entering your eyes, it's going to tell your body to not release the melatonin. So therefore, I wear, like, these are actually Warby Parkers. These are 70% blue blocking, but then I put on top of these almost 100% blue blocking glasses as per Consumer Reports. They're the ones who tested like all the ones that were out there.
I didn't know that about melatonin.
Sleep, all about sleep. Yeah.
Wow.
So talk to me a little bit about, and you touched on this before, you said social anxiety when you're talking about dancing and how that shifted, but talk to me about performance anxiety.
Well, it's tied to shame, and I'll try to keep this short. I wrote a blog on this, did a little podcast. I was one of the few black kids in my town where my parents moved us from the city to our little suburb called Oldbrook. And baseball team, one example, my baseball team was all white. Most of the teams were all white.
Okay.
And I wasn't treated too well by not just the players, but also the coaches. One example is when
on your own team.
On my own team. So when the water bottle came around, everyone would drink out of it. When it came to me, I'd drink and the next person would wipe it off, scrub it down because, So my father was from Jamaica. He was a fish in the water. He was a goat climbing, and he just loved to bite. But American sports, he wasn't that type of person.
Yeah, sure.
So I learned that from him. Not blaming him, but I also didn't learn it from my peers because my peers weren't my friends. They were kind of nasty.
Yeah,
so when it comes to baseball, bat, I was terrible. So I was very confident that once I stood up, went to the plate, I was going to strike out. I actually had so much performance anxiety that I just, while I was in the batter's box, even when I was in the dugout and my turn was coming up, I would get sick because I was teased. So I developed shame around baseball. So when even high school, college, when I had to swing, I had, even though my friends were around me, I would think. That's how I developed a lot of performance anxiety around swinging and hitting things. Other sports I excelled.
Oh, interesting.
Sports, and I got over that with excelling in other sports, baseball, and it was really, 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 really tough. So there was shame around my what I couldn't do, and that led to performance anxiety.
That's really interesting. So that. What do you think if you didn't have those experiences, as you said, as feeling not only the absence of support, but also the negative feelings coming from your teammates and from your coaches? What do you think you would have looked like as an athlete?
Well, it depends on my genetics. Was I meant to play baseball? Who knows? But I think I would have learned more. I would have practiced a skill, because I don't like, if I'm embarrassed about something, I'm not going to practice it anymore. I'm not going to practice unless, I go in my basement. I'm going to show them. I didn't. I was
in general.
So I just got
go
bad.
away from it. Yeah.
I never excelled. I think if I had a coach who said, listen, you need to choke up in the back. You need to and watch my teammates. Hey, Richard, I'll take you aside and show you how to hit the ball or throw better. I think I would have been better. Would I have excelled? I don't know. But I think I would have appreciated the game more. I didn't even like baseball for a long time, because it reminded me. When I watch baseball, I don't watch it. But I like mixed martial arts because I love to fight people.
And you didn't get any. Now, were there eyes watching you in your mixed martial arts? And was there like a competitive nature to it?
But I was a natural at it, because and you were a wrestler. I always wanted to ask you about your wrestling. I wish I took up wrestling, because I understand leverage and biomechanics and momentum. So I was really good at hand-to-hand combat and throwing people, jiu-jitsu. So I didn't have any social.
Yeah, you would have been a great wrestler. Sorry, cut out for a second, but you would have been a great wrestler, knowing everything about your capoeira and everything like that.
Choke him out.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is, like, performance anxiety in sports. I think I can say this with great confidence. Like, I am an 83% at pretty much everything. No higher, no lower. I'm just like a straight 83. It's fine. It's like a fine. It's good. I think it's like good or a little bit less than good. Like, it's fine. I remember at 1 year in mathematics in high school, 3 out of 4 semesters, I got an 83. Like, that was my grade. And I was just like, I am so consistently good. And that's how I was with wrestling. That's how I was with football. That's how I was with lacrosse. I was a little bit better at rugby. And I've kind of never really shared this, but I used to fantasize about when we were on the bus and we were going to the wrestling matches and to the football games and to the lacrosse games to an extent, but there weren't as many like people in the stands or in the crowds. Mm-hmm. But I used to fantasize about there being like a car accident in front of us and we wouldn't be able to get there so that I wouldn't have to play. And I can remember it. When I say like, I mean, I think that happened every single wrestling match and every single football game in my entire high school career. And I don't totally know because it's not like I was like particularly bad. I was always hard on myself, but like I had such performance anxiety when it came to sports, but I always did them and I always enjoyed when they were done. But it's just interesting to reflect on your life. That fantasy of the car accident and we wouldn't be able to get there was, I would say, every single away sporting event, except for maybe lacrosse, because it was like so not serious, but maybe I'm just looking through blue blocking rose colored glasses. All sports. But
you're not alone, man.
I wanted to share that with you because I feel like you would judge me for that.
There are a lot of famous Janet Jackson. She told people always nervous, so she has to pass gas or fart before she performs. There are football players who have to throw up or do something, So don't worry about it's just you.
Yeah, I guess so. So the last one is shame. Talk to us about that. I think you touched on it already, but is there anything else you want to fill in with regards to shame?
It's almost like I don't want to compare myself to someone with emotional trauma or post-traumatic stress disorders, but if something happens to you as a child, they're called nuclear episodes that they happen during a certain time of your life, they stick with you. They stick with you. And if you got ridiculed or, someone calls you an N during a day, I've got called an N in class and the teacher didn't say anything, or someone would make a really derogatory statement towards me, all these white, and it's, first day of class is in grade school. I walk in, the teacher puts her hand in my hair, so it's rubbing my afro, and a white kid stands up and goes, "Ugh," I'm sorry to say, "Ugh, a nigger," and she didn't say anything. And that was my first experience in my new town and my new school. Don't think that didn't stick with me. Because
it's hard enough to be a new kid, and then you have that, like, the worst.
So I had fear because my teachers, the people who were supposed to protect me, didn't protect me. And then I started developing shame because, I don't like my skin. I want to be like them because I'm ugly and people are making fun of me, so it must be me. So I had shame for a while around my own skin. I had to really get comfortable. It took me a long time to love who I was, love my ancestry, love my day, love my culture.
Yeah.
So that I had a lot of shame around myself as an individual, and that tool tied into my performance, tied into my relationships, tied into being comfortable around people that look like my detriment to performance, to moving, to breathing, to living.
Wow. Now, okay, clearly right now, so I'm going to take two sides of this right now. Clearly right now, and I hate to say it, but it's like every time that I see on the news where it's like day 63 of protests since George Floyd, I'm like, day 63, like 500 years, like the 1500s is when this started. That if you're going to count days, you got to start all the way back there. So then I'm going to tell kind of the other side is I think that I am more sensitive to an ally putting it back on the person that they're trying to be an ally with, saying like, just tell me what I should do and I'll do it. Because if someone's really in a time of where you can help them, don't make it any harder on them. And I'm going to take it from an interesting vantage point, but like one of my best friends' wives died. And after the fact, it was probably 2 weeks after, and him and I were on the phone, we were just catching up. And something happened with someone else that he was talking to. He was like, Steve, can I just tell you one thing that I've learned through all this? And it was something that never crossed my mind. He said, I will never say to someone, hey, just let me know if you need something. You know what you need to do. You know what your relationship is at. Just do it. Like they're in a tough time. They are in a tough time right now. Do not add to their burden of the tough time by then making them have to tell you what to do. And that's always stuck with me and like kind of expanded to other realms. And that's somewhat how I'm looking at being the best version of myself for my thoughts and beliefs during this time. And so for me, I think that it's really important. And these are stupid, like little things, but it would never cross my mind that someone might feel uncomfortable when they walk into a room. But it is not totally a guarantee depending on how that person feels in relation to the other people in the room. I think I was raised to be hyper friendly in general. Like I love human connection.
Yes, you do.
Like almost like seeing someone smile makes me like super happy. But I think now I do try and like almost look from the other side and almost be scanning the room. Like, is there any chance that anyone right now maybe isn't feeling so included? That's not that I wouldn't want to talk to that person in general, but like maybe that's where the efforts are. Another thing is like, listen, I love surfing, and I love surfing in the Rockaways, and there are a lot of kids in the Rockaways who do not have surfboards. Like a surfboard is not something that you can go down to the pharmacy and pick up real easily. So my hope is, and like I'm real excited, there's gonna be another paddle out, and I think I already got one of my patients to donate a bunch of boards, but like that's a cause that really I feel like I can get behind. And then another thing is like having the difficult conversations with my friends where we disagree and approaching it in the right way. Those are just kind of like the three things that like off the top of my head, I feel like are perhaps part of the solution. again, I'm not asking you like, tell me what to do or like, how can people be better allies? I just shared with you a bunch of things. Can you be my editor on those? Is that an okay balance with this?
That's a lot, and that's a heavy question. And what's funny is I have a lot of my white friends coming up to me, even white clients, and a lot of it's white guilt. And I don't mean this in a derogatory way.
No,
but
not at all.
What do I do? My ancestors did this, or my father feels this, he's a racist. What do I do? And the first thing is I look at them and I feel their energies. What's your intention? If your intentions are good, no matter who you are, I'm going to give you the best guidance. I can't tell you what to do, Steve, unless I talk to you and find out what your, I guess, go back to the word capacity is, what you're willing to do.
Understood.
But if you have love in your heart and you have good intention and you're not just doing this out of guilt or shame, I'm going to give you the best advice. See, there's certain things. The first thing I tell people who are not of color is go educate your other people, go educate other white folks. Take the knowledge that I give you or that you learn from and go to teach one person, change their perspective, change their paradigm, change their mind. Don't try to change the world. If you want to protest, go ahead, but talk to your mom or your best friend and tell them and try to change their mind so they're on the right path. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
And that's teach you. It's not my job to teach you or teach this person. I have to teach my own culture the right way, and I don't have the time or even the patience right now to talk to every non-black person. You know what? I know you feel bad, and you should do this. I can't. All I can say is know what's right and go teach the other. If you want to ask me questions, go ahead. But I'm not going to sit here and lecture you, tell you what to do as a good white person.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And just thank you.
I know you have a good heart. I know you. I've known you for a while. You have a very good heart. You have good spirit. You have good energy. I know you have good intentions, so I wouldn't worry about you. I'd take you under my wing.
No, in ways, whether you've ever known it or not, you probably have. And that's whether you think you've ever said anything direct or not. You're a part of my story, and I like the story that you and I have written together. And so it's just like, yeah, thanks. I love you. That's great. So now we went in a lot of different directions. Start to think about a few closing words, and I'm going to open us up for some Q&A right now. Okay. So while they're doing that, can you just tell people where to find you?
You can find me at moveevolution.com. That's MOVEVOLUTION. My podcast is Move Evolution, Heal, Move, Evolve. My name is Richard Symister. What else do you want to know? How to find me? You can send a
that's awesome. And did you interview anybody recently who's 83% handsome and you had a good chat about VO2 max and aerobic stress?
Let me think. Oh yeah, Steve Horning.
Yeah. If anybody likes what they heard today, go check that out too. I think you'll really like it. It's on Spotify. I think it's episode number 14 or something like that, somewhere around there.
It's on Spotify and iTunes. It's on episode number 15. It's up now. I'm still editing the show notes, but I'm not saying this to push up on you, give you props. Feel free. I learned a hell of a lot. I got a lot of information out of that podcast. I had my questions ready for you. We went up the first 20 minutes, half an hour. I was asking about your Buddhist-like philosophy, being human, how you feel about other people, and I didn't plan that, but that's why it was such a good podcast. The last half, we talked about the main topic, and it was really informative. I think if anyone wants to learn about fitness, how to go about it, the first 3 steps, check out the podcast with Stephen and myself.
Thanks, man. You are an excellent interview. So give us your closing thoughts, if you don't mind.
From a physical therapist point of view or from the client's point of view?
From a you point of view, it's you.
When you speak to your clients for the first time or every time, listen, do a little psychology testing, know what they love to do, what they don't love to do, figure out. You have to know both, the motivators and the triggers, and use that for their long-term goals. Use that when formulating the long-term goals, or else you're not going to be on the same page. Even if they verbalize, I want to be able to run. What else do you want to do? Or ask them a lot of questions, because they may have other stuff. Peel the onion, get deeper into their spirit, into their energy, and also what they really want and why they can't get there or what they're afraid of. That was not really a summary, but that's my
No, that's your closing thoughts. That's awesome. Well, Richard, I want to thank you for being on. I want to thank you for being you. I want to thank you for being wise and taking the time to share that wisdom with us. We hope that everyone out there has a great rest of their day, and I hope everyone enjoys our movement towards movement.
Right on, man. Thank you so much for I had a blast. Cool, man.
Likewise, man. This was fantastic. Thank you all for coming out. We'll see you soon.
Peace.